expression of anti-black bias and white superiority. No matter how it's pronounced or spelled, it is linguistic corruption and attack on civility. Whether it is used as a noun or a verb or an adjective, or regardless of whether spoken, written, or otherwise reproduced, it strengthens the anti-black stereotype of lazy, stupid, unintelligent, dirty, worthless. Parts of speech the word have been used in. Naggers, acting in a lazy and irresponsible manner. Nigger lipping, wetting the end of a cigarette while smoking. Nigger lover, derogatory term aimed at whites lacking in necessary loathing of blacks. Nigger luck, exceptionally but undeserved good luck. Nigger heaven. These are actual terms in our language. How many of you know what a nigger heaven was? It was back in the Jim Crow days, the blacks had to sit up in the balcony. If you watch To Kill a Mockingbird, those blacks are in the balcony. That was called nigger heaven. Okay? Nigger knocker, axe handle or weapon made from an axe handle. And some of you know what those little Brazil nuts were called?
Yeah, nigger toes.
Nigger toes. Demeaning, menial task, nigger work. Nigger as a word was also used to describe a dark shade of color, like nigger brown or nigger black. The status of whites that mixed together with blacks. Nigger lover, nigger breaker in the slave narratives were the slaves who were unruly and had to be sent to an overseer to break them, to submit, to beat them into submission. A nigger killer, and anything belonging or linked to African Americans. A nigger baby, a nigger boy, a girl. No other American surname carries as much purposeful cruelty in the English language. So it is unlike, so people say, oh, it's like this word, it's like that. It's really not like that word, okay?
And that's exactly why whites shouldn't use the word nigger or nigger.
Well, let's get to that, okay? Because we know your position. Let's get to that, because we're going to get to the A and all that stuff that people talk about, the spelling and the choreography of spelling and how that changes things. No American group has gone through, and I don't want you just to believe this, as I'm saying. I want you to go look this up, okay? This is based on research and stuff that I've come, but I want you to do the research to counter this. No American group has gone through as many nicknames as blacks that have victimized all racial and ethnic groups. Coon, Tom, Savage, Pickaninny, Mammy, Buck, Samba, Jigaboo, Buckwheat are some. Many of these slurs are fully traditional, pseudo-scientific, literary, cinematic, and everyday distortion of African Americans. These caricatures, whether spoken, written, or reproduced in media, reflect the extent and vast network of anti-black prejudice. And this is from the guy who curates the African American Racist Museum at Ferris State University.
I said, the kids called me a nigger. And she said, well, aren't you a nigger? Come on, nigger. The first time I was called a nigger by somebody white was I was on a picking line in 1960. And somebody white in the car drove by and said, nigga, out the window loud. And that was the first time.
We came to Louisiana, railroad track separated black and white folks. Nigger, I was dealing with many fights over there. I handed some ass whippings out and received some.
I'm gonna kill you, nigga, run. Run, nigga, run.
First time somebody called me a nigger was second grade, first day of school, little white girl, name was Carol. I'll leave out her last name. And it wasn't even like mean, it was like, hi, nigga. What's the name of this?
We lived in a predominantly white neighborhood, and I was probably one of 350 kids at this elementary school, and I was black, and there was this little white boy that used to chase me home and call me a nigger.
Honey, what's this black word come?
And I remember going home and I remember saying, Mom, what does this word mean? Because I had never heard the word with such vengeance.
Nigger, go home now. White boy coming, walking down the street, niggas go home. All that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? But we didn't do nothing to pick up rocks and pull it. I was probably crawling the first time somebody called me nigger. It was probably in my house. Because I've heard it all my life, and it was probably I either did something wrong and somebody said it to me as nigga stop doing that, or somebody said that's a cute little nigga.
Am I a nigga? And if the answer is yes, don't be ashamed to admit you're a nigga.
Well, I remember the first time I heard it, and I never been really offended by it. Because the first time I heard it, it came out of somebody's black mouth.
Once you get a job, nigga, be respectful.
Nigga, they acting like cousin people. You can't stand that.
Then when I heard a white person say it, and like the name called, and it was like, it was used as a weapon. Too late for that. I heard it. It just didn't do anything for me.
It's the nigga in you that turns you black. Once you learn to hate it.
Hate it? You know what? I can't remember anyone ever calling me a nigga. I guess. You know, not in a derogatory fashion. I can't even actually think of anybody calling me a nigga to my face that wore within hearing distance ever. Who's gonna call you a nigga in New York? Nobody. Except, you know, other niggas.
Die, nigga!
Why you brothers and sisters? Nigga. That's all I hear you motherfuckers talking about. I ain't no nigga. Does everything y'all talking about up to be a four-letter word? What are you motherfuckers doing for the community anyway? Motherfucker, I got kids. I don't want them listening to that bullshit. Niggas. You motherfuckers need to stop. How could you call yourself a nigga and be proud of it?
That is actually from a documentary called The N-Word. And one of the things that we're going to do is not necessarily get into that debate about who can say it and who can't, but rather look at the power of words. And I want to look at that in the depth that we are looking at in terms of narrative and story and personal experiences. What I don't want to do is sort of leave us with this sense that those who are concerned about the word are those who have been traumatized by the word, because that's not really the case. In my case, it's not about a personal experience, it's about trying to understand why there is a disconnect between an understanding of history that is so much a part of this word that many people that I encounter who want to defend it and claw to the end to defend it aren't quite aware of. All right? So let's move on and talk about why this sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Why do we tell kids that? First of all, is it true or not true?
It's not true.
It's not true?
It's a matter of protection of that they're trying to teach them how to develop those skills to protect themselves and not be so offended by other people's words.
Well,
however, the real truth of it, when the impact actually hits, sometimes you get scarred, but you can't see the scar.
Well, and it's interesting because even in the Gloria Naylor example, she doesn't know what that word means, but she knows that it's not something that's supposed to be complimentary. So that's what we're talking about, and that's what I say when we talk about ableist language, for example. You say, oh, that's so lame, or you talk about that's so gay. That is not intended to be celebratory or promote. It's disparaging. So when we talk about sort of taking something back, we have to first of all figure it out, and this is what Toni Morrison has said, is you can't really take anything back that you never owned. And think about that. To what extent have we owned something that then we could take back? All right? That's what we're going to be looking at when we start talking about the history of this word and the power of words. This is said to be, even if I don't say anything else here, just looking at this does what to you as an audience?
It's
just
jarring.
It's what?
It's jarring.
It's jarring. Why is it jarring? Because nobody said anything.
It's jarring.
History.
It's what?
The history of the word.
Okay, you know some history of the word. All right?
Just on its usage.
Because of its usage, you know that it's not one of the, as Gloria Naylor just pointed out, the word itself is relatively innocuous. It's the meaning that goes with the word and the consensus that gives it meaning and also gives it impact. Now, seeing this is one thing. Having someone else say it becomes something else.
Nigger.
What's different about seeing it and then hearing it? Or is there a difference?
I don't think there's a difference.
You don't think there's a difference? Okay. BJ.
There's been so much weight put to the word that there's no difference in seeing it or hearing it. Also, there's an assumption that I'm feeling that this word has been used so much in black community and in black families. And in my family, the word was not used in any term of endearment.
That's what we're
If
going to
your
talk
mama
about.
called
We're gonna
you
talk about
that,
that.
she was pissed off as
Right.
heck at you.
Right.
So for us to think that within our families, for her, maybe that was her experience. That was not my experience.
It was not
and
my
for
experience
Whoopi
either.
Goldberg to say in New York she never heard of it, I don't know where she grew up, because we can beat up a white boy in front of the funeral home because he called 3 of us black girls that word.
And it was not used in my household either, and it still isn't. So that's what I say about this double standard thing. There's this assumption that all black people say it, all black people. Well, that's clearly not true, because we know that the NAACP has fought for years to not only get it out of the dictionary, but also they tried to bury it in, I don't know, 2008. You know, so there have been petitions out there to get people to stop saying it. So we can't say it's a double standard. And Tim Weiss, who's an anti-bias educator, says something like, well, if it's a double standard, so is American history.
Yeah.
American history is a double standard. So why? So what? We have double standards all the time. Now what? So I agree with you that and just because I show you this doesn't mean that I'm agreeing. What I'm saying is that people haven't teased out and challenged some of these assumptions.
Yes.
Because I don't use it, I never went around, my family didn't use it, and I was never called that. And I'm not upset when somebody calls. What I'm distraught by is when people don't understand the connections that we're talking about that makes this word unlike any other word in the English language.
And you know, if
Yes.
you call this word and somebody is ready to fight you and calling you this word, and it's a white person who's ready to fight you to call you this word, to the point where we have to chase this boy all around the neighborhood till we cornered him in front of the funeral parlor, yes, you're going to say this word has some very negative connotations and meanings toward me.
Well, and the other thing too, I mean, I served at, we distribute clothing at the cast down here every other Saturday morning. Join us next Saturday. And of all the times we've been there for a year and a half, I've never seen people fighting, physically fighting. I saw 2 young men fighting, and I say young as in 20s. And one was beating this guy to a pulp. And the whole time he was beating the guy to the pulp, he was baptizing him with that word. And trust me, it was not a term of endearment. As a man was his teeth were being kicked out and he was bleeding. So the thing about language is that there's a certain kind of fluidity. And I know when black people in particular have taken words like fat and changed the spelling of it and made it P-H-A-T, or you take a word like stupid or ridiculous and you make that good. But those are not people in their identities the way we're talking about this word. So this is what other people have said, and I tend to agree when you say this is our cruelest word. Now, it doesn't say it's a cruel word, it says our cruelest word. So there's nothing more cruel than this word in the English language. All right, and we'll show you how this is an equal opportunity word. 6 simple letters convey centuries, not just a moment or two, but centuries of pain, evil, and contempt. I don't hear anything about endearment in that. No other word fuels passions like it. Passions. Now that's the stuff that you can't explain. That's stuff that comes out of this place that has no rationale and no intellectual ability to explain that. It's also the most explosive of racial epithets. Almost magical in its negative power. You see how these things are all coming? And these come from different sources. So this is not just me saying it. It's not just one person saying all of it. These are several people who study language, who study sociology, who study race relations. And this is what they come up with. It occupies a place in the soul. In the soul, where logic and reason never go. Donna.
I wanted to take it on a different level.
Okay.
Watching that video clip, there's this energy that comes up in me, this feeling of pain that goes beyond my own experience in my 45 years, but it rises up through your back and you feel first the anger and then you feel this torment and pain that is ancestral, that has nothing to do with anything right now. It's something deeper in me that makes me want to honor and respect not using that.
Well, and that's exactly what Sherry Shepherd is going to tell Barbara Walters on The View. She's going to say, you know what? I can't even explain this to you. And we're going to get to this moment where we're going to say, you know what? I think I get it now. What I get is that I don't get it. Because there are ways in which the experiences that we have can never be experienced by somebody else. No matter how many times we walk up and talk about to people, I know how you feel, you really don't know how I feel.
Unless you've actually experienced.
But you can't even experience what I've experienced though. Twins don't even experience the same thing. So that's a nonsensical, I know what it means. It means that we are at the hands of language and we try to say something. And I remember hearing this in a presentation about compassion in the face of terror. Sometimes when there's death and there are these traumatic things, we think we have to have something to say. And it's important that people don't connect with what you say, they connect with what you do. So it's not the words that you say that connect, it's what you do. And that's why sometimes that nonverbal language, you just reach out and just touch somebody on the shoulder. That says more than any words can say, because there's nothing you can say when there's a death. There's nothing you can say because we don't understand that. So this same thing, I know how you feel, really doesn't convey reality there, because I can't know how you feel. I don't have the same relationship, even if we have the same parent or the same sibling, and that sibling died, we don't have the same relationship with that, so I don't know how you feel. We both may be sad, but I don't know if my sadness is your sadness. But there's something about this word that is unlike the B word. How is it unlike the B word?
It is not racially motivated.
It's what?
It's not racially motivated.
The N word is not racially motivated?
No, the B word is not racially motivated.
It doesn't tie to a
It's
particular
not tied to a race, but the
outside.
N word is.
Well, flip it the other way though. What's different about the N word than the B word? The N word is not tied to a specific gender or a specific behavior.
No.
Right, okay. What about the thug? Because some people have said thug is the new N word.
Well, I don't say something about the bitch word.
Okay.
The bitch, for instance, like with my sisters, we call each other bitches in a term of endearment. Now, it's like friendship, like saying girl, for instance. Like when you, like saying nigger, I mean, to be real, nigger is said by whites, nigger is said by us, hip-hop, by the hip-hop community, in the way of expressing endearment.
Okay, we're going to address that. That's a misconception.
The culture.
Okay, we're going to address that, but I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, but that's a misconception.
You say my nigger, and it's not a word of endearment. My nigger is, just like saying bitch. Bitch used to be, you know, like Queen Latifah, who you call me bitch, you mean that. And now it's accessible.
Well, I hear you're saying, I'm not necessarily agreeing with that, but I hear what you're saying, because I'm going to try to tease out how that's not quite as true as people think it is.
Okay. The B word, to me, is as bad as you using the N word. I will not have a girlfriend that refers to me as the B word. I will not. I don't use it. I don't use it as a term of endearment, because growing up in my family, if you use that word towards a woman, you're ready to fight her. Okay, so it's a difference in how we were raised and what we were learned.
No, because in my household, we was a kind of bitches.
Okay, we go. And I knew a young lady that used that word between her and her sister, and she happened to be white. She came around a group of black people and used that word, and they looked at her. They looked at her like, oh no, and I had to school her.
Okay, gotcha. On to the next. Let's hear another comment. Because what I'm hearing is the generational divide that is alleged there. I don't think there is necessarily. Let's see. Sharon.
Yeah, I think what she just said, that she kept saying in my household,
right.
You know.
Right.
So then I would ask someone who is in the younger generation why it is that they accept the words.
Right.
You know, I'm not saying they shouldn't, I'm not passing judgment on, but when did you come to the point where it was all right to say it?
Okay.
I mean,
That particular word, what it does is it takes the name of the person off of, and it kind of desensitizes you to the human side of it. It does not just, if you just walk up to somebody, oh, I'm gonna just hurt John.
Right.
This is, Barbara's son.
Right.
If you look at this person, you're like, that's Barbara's son, that's John.
Right.
I wouldn't do the same thing as opposed to using that word.
If we stop saying it in the hip-hop community, and we stop saying nigga, is that gonna stop the police from racially profiling? Is that gonna stop us from not getting jobs because of our names? Is that gonna stop any of the, is that gonna stop it? Is that gonna stop somebody getting pulled over by the police, going to jail, getting hung, saying they
Is this gonna stop whites from saying niggers,
If
though?
we stop saying nigga, is that gonna stop what's the real problem?
Well, my thing is this, I'm not saying that you can't say it at all, I'm just saying if you're gonna say it, then do something for the community. You know what I'm saying, do something as far as bringing the community together, like taking these fast food restaurants out of our community. Because you look at in the hood, you see fast food restaurants, you see liquor stores.
But
I'm saying
that anybody started the conversation
saying,
not saying it was going to accomplish anything. What we tried to do is say, how can we better understand what we're saying and do words matter?
It's still in the South. I've lived in the South. Okay? And if you were born and raised or grew up or have relatives in the South, then you know that word. And if this young man is from Kentucky, you have a different understanding.
That we're trying to find a home and a place where you are somehow free. But I'm not sure that that's the language that is the place of home. So just bear with me as we move through it. Yes.
And to discuss what you're talking about, the homeland Africa.
Yes.
I'm not sure if people are aware, but Black people, Melanin people were indigenous to America along with Red and Native Americans. We were already here. They found a skull in Brazil. She is named after Lucia. I think her name is Lucy. She's named after Lucy, and after her name is Lucia. She is a Black woman that is Paleo Indian, which means she's prior to Native Americans, and she is a Black woman that is over in the Western Hemisphere. So when we talk about Africa, we are similar. Those are our people, as we say in the hip hop community. Those are my people. But when we say African, we're kind of saying we're not indigenous to this homeland. When in reality we are. But that's something that comes with that word nigger, where it takes us from who we really are to taking what they're giving us, which is, okay, you're from Africa, you're just slaves. Because that's really, at the end of the day, what it means. When at the end of the day, we're really indigenous. Now, slavery happened. Okay, yeah, it happened. But
that's not all of our history.
Exactly. That is not all of our history. Our history is not just about slavery, which I always say is just a grain of salt of our history. It's a grain of salt because our history is so much bigger than just this word, nigger.
Well, I don't think anybody's challenging from European, to be brutally honest.
Well, I'm not saying other people, we're not saying that people themselves are defined by those. What we're saying is pointing out that this is where the history comes from.
Oh yeah, of course, but what I'm saying is, and especially once they give something that has to do with Africans, they always give it in
It's an
negative
intellectual discussion on the cable.
Everyone proud. The category is people who annoy you. Okay. As always, we give you the letters R, T, S, L, and E. We just need 3 more consonants and a vowel. Okay, like a B, an N, and a G. And the vowel? An O, please. Okay, well, it looks like you're going to get a lot of help here. The category is people who annoy you. Audience, keep quiet, please. 10 seconds, Mr. Marsh.
I know it, but I don't think I should say it.
5 seconds, Mr. Marsh.
All right, I'd like to solve the puzzle. Niggers! Huh? Oh. Ooh. Oh, daggers, of course. Daggers.
That's everywhere. And then you've got the games that were the Sambos. Yes, Deborah?
There is 10 Little Indians.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, Agatha Christie has the book called 10 Little Indians.
Like all that's depicted is media. You know, anything that you feed into is media. And where does the media come from? It's coming from European people. So what I'm saying is, if you just like a child, if you just take a child and watch TV every single day, every day. And then they low-key will absorb racism without even knowing it.
Correct.
So you have to blame the people who's behind the machine. You can't just blame the people, you have to look at the machine. So it's bigger, and we always go on a foundational.
Correct.
So you just don't blame, just like somebody gets raped, you don't blame the victim, you're supposed to blame the raper. So
expression of anti-black bias and white superiority. No matter how it's pronounced or spelled, it is linguistic corruption and attack on civility. whether it is used as a noun or a verb or an adjective, or regardless of whether spoken, written, or otherwise reproduced, it strengthens the anti-black stereotype of lazy, stupid, unintelligent, dirty, worthless. Parts of speech the word have been used in. Naggers, acting in a lazy and irresponsible manner. Nigger lipping, wetting the end of a cigarette while smoking. Nigger lover, derogatory term aimed at whites lacking in necessary loathing of blacks. Nigger luck, exceptionally but undeserved good luck. Nigger heaven, these are actual terms in our language. How many of you know what a nigger heaven was? It was back in the Jim Crow days, the blacks had to sit up in the balcony. If you watched To Kill a Mockingbird, those blacks were in the balcony. That was called nigger heaven. Okay? Nigger knocker, axe handle or weapon made from an axe handle. And some of you know what those little Brazil nuts were called?
Yeah, nigger toes.
Nigger toes. Demeaning, menial task, nigger work. Nigger as a word was also used to describe a dark shade of color, like nigger brown or nigger black, the status of whites that mixed together with blacks. Nigger lover, nigger breaker in the slave narratives, where the slaves who were unruly and had to be sent to an overseer to break them, to submit, to beat them into submission. A nigger killer, and anything belonging or linked to African Americans. A nigger baby, a nigger boy, a girl. No other American surname carries as much purposeful cruelty in the English language. So it is unlike, so people say, oh, it's like this word, it's like that. It's really not like that word, okay?
And that's exactly why whites shouldn't use the word nigger or nigger.
Well, let's get to that, okay? Because we know your position. Let's get to that, because we're going to get to the A and all that stuff that people talk about, the spelling and the choreography of spelling and how that changes things. No American group has gone through, and I don't want you just to believe this, as I'm saying. I want you to go look this up, okay? This is based on research and stuff that I've come, but I want you to do the research to counter this. No American group has gone through as many nicknames as blacks that have victimized all racial and ethnic groups. Coon, Tom, Savage, Pickaninny, Mammy, Buck, Samba, Jigaboo, Buckwheat are some. Many of these slurs are fully traditional, pseudo-scientific, literary, cinematic, and everyday distortion of African Americans. These caricatures, whether spoken, written, or reproduced in media, reflect the extent and vast network of anti-black prejudice. And this is from the guy who curates the African American Racist Museum at Ferris State University.
Well, it's easy. Everybody knows how, unfortunately, it was centuries of slavery and abuse and this whole culture and society.
You don't even, you see the two people interacting here as the same until that word comes. Like they even say like they're the same size, they look about the same age. And then the second that word comes, you realize, oh, our speaker is black and the person who called him that is white. It creates this gigantic divide that you didn't have before. And that's why the memory of it is so painful, I think.
Okay. So it's not just about remembering, but it's about remembering something that seems to be somewhat traumatic. I mean, is the person having amnesia?
No.
No. What's happening, Ben?
Something this makes me think about is how childhood is filled with all these very small moments that all of a sudden change the entire way you understand the world, right? And so here we have a child who's coming to the realization for the first time that there's this social order that exists that he or she had never been cognizant of. And it's a social order where some people with a single word can be labeled as less than.
Okay. And how do we know that it's less than and not a term of endearment? How do we know that? We know that there's some markers
The
there.
precursor.
He stuck his tongue out.
The precursor.
And what?
The precursor.
Right, yeah, sticking his tongue out. Well, and no whit bigger, because there's been some controversy in recent years about whether the person sticking out the tongue was black or white. That's a slightly different level of conversation. In the 1920s, it is likely that that was a white person. And the clue here is probably here and no whit bigger. And no whit bigger. And what's interesting though, we're talking about the sort of the impact of the person who was named that. I'd ask you a little bit about the person who actually stuck the tongue and called. Where does that come from? Where does that come from, or do we care?
Prior to them even having that interaction, it was taught in the home.
Okay, something has been taught.
It has been taught, it has been heard, it has been seen, it has been demonstrated.
And what has been taught? What lesson has been taught so that you know exactly how to respond to that situation? What has been taught?
He was Caucasian.
That what?
That person that you're using that word towards is less than
Okay.
you are.
That somebody who is different.
As a church mouse, but if I can call you that word because you are black, then you are less than I am.
Okay. Now, let's fast forward to the very end, because this is not a child telling this. This is someone who is remembering it as an adult. Why is there that line that of all the things that happened there, that's all that I remember? Why, Diane?
Emotional impact.
Emotional impact. What else? Emotional impact is huge. Trauma.
Yes.
But what we don't want to do, however, is to sort of couch this conversation about the N-word that everybody who has experienced it has experienced trauma. What I will say, however, is that the word is also about an experience. And there are many people who may not be called a word who experience that trauma. And we're expanding this such that we're talking really about what President Obama said a few weeks ago in that basement. This is not so much about people calling people the word, but how people are treating people who are assigned